Right, so today what I'm going to be showing you is what we call the concave one length, okay? That basically means when it's up at the back and comes down in the front, okay? So it's not quite a graduated bob, so say for instance, Bryony, yours is graduated so it goes up at the back. This is just a one length, so it's all one length, but the baseline, instead of on a one length being straight, it's going to be curved, okay? So it's going to be up at the back and coming down at the front. Obviously that can be to any degree, so you can have a real severe concave bob where it goes right up at the back and long at the front, or you can have a bit more of a subtle.
Is that like how Nicki Minaj has her hair?
Yeah. So, you know, depending on the angle at which you put in will obviously differentiate between having a subtle slope or a really strong shape. So it just depends what you can do. Today obviously I'm going to do sort of quite a subtle one just to show you how to get that shape, and obviously then you would exaggerate it for a more, you know, a more impacted look. Okay, so what you'll notice, I've done like I normally do with my two sections at the back. You can split it into four if you'd like to, so you can go back to how we do the one length cut into your four sections, so hot cross bun sections. I've actually just split it into two, so it's up to you. You can do that if you find it easier. Put it in four sections, and we're going to work through the two back sections first. And what I've done is you'll notice the difference from the one length. When we did the one length cut, if you can remember, which we did last week, that your partings are always straight on your one length. With a concave, you're always looking at that sort of slight V, okay? And what's easy to remember is that's the shape you're going to be recreating on your baseline. Like with your one length, when it's straight, you're looking for a straight baseline. On the concave one length, it's going to be sort of a V or a slight curve, so an upside down or an N if you like. Whichever shape you put in is the shape you're going to be looking for on your baseline. Like your one length, your first cut is your guideline, so once you've cut that, your aim is then to follow that. Okay, and obviously anything, you make sure the head's nice and straight, but I'm going to put it in a forward position, so rather than a sort of upright, we're going to pop the head forward. I'm going to start in the middle. So the first little section I'm going to take is to determine the length of the middle section. Obviously being that's going to be the shortest you've got. Okay, so I'm going to put a little snip in there. So that's going to denote my shortest point of that haircut. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create an upside down V, if you like. And I'm going to exaggerate quite a lot so you can see. Okay, so obviously depending on the severity of how you want that to concave, depends on how steep you put your V in. Okay, so then this is the hardest part, is getting this side to match. So to come round at the same angle. So what I would do is just, like anything, before you start, so you'll notice I've left more length on this left hand side, so I'm going to go back through. Just take a little bit more of that side. And then I'm going to check my edges. So I'm happy they're both the same length before I move on. Okay, so I'm going to take the same section again. So like your one length, you're going to take literally a centimetre or half an inch depth section. Again, that can differ. You can differ that with the thickness of the hair. If it's really fine hair, you could probably get away with taking a bigger section. If it's thick hair, you're going to want to take slightly smaller. Okay, and then we're going to follow our guideline. Okay, so obviously what I'm going to do is cut. I'm always going to cut that in half. So from the middle, I'll find mine. You see where my guide is. And cut to it. Okay, and the same again. So your middle is always your shortest point. So you can see it's it's what I think it's going away from what you've learnt so far. Everything so far has been to one guideline, but what you'll notice in this, you've nearly got two guidelines. You've got one that side, one that side. So obviously you've got to remember which one you're going to. but obviously we're keeping down at 0, so it's like your one length, the same principle, rather than cutting straight, you're going to be cutting like that. Okay, so again, what we're going to do is just check our sections are both the same length at either side before you move on. In theory, if you get your first section correct, then all the other sections following it should be correct also. What you'll notice, guys, this head I'm cutting on today has already got some layers in, so I will eventually run out of hair. You know, my layers will end up shorter than the length. But hopefully the ones you've got, because we changed heads last week, you should have a little bit more hair to play with on yours. Okay, so I'm going to do the same again. I'm going to see my guide. Obviously, as you go through, it'll become easier and easier. What you must be careful of is that you don't take part of that section over to this section, so really keep on that middle section, otherwise you will find you're going to go into your guideline. Okay, if you can't see your guide, like I always say when you're cutting, if you can't see your guide, don't cut.
Do you want to take it over?
No. What you'll notice on this head, it's looking like it's longer this side, but it's more of a kink on this side. Curling upward, can you see that?
Yeah.
So
Can you take?
when it's
Can you
dry,
stand
we'll
up?
be able to get a better result. So obviously, just taking you back to your hair growth patterns and stuff, just because obviously it's quite relevant for this haircut.
Can you stand up?
If you were doing this on a client, you'd obviously be looking at the hairline all round, obviously like you should be whenever you cut. You're going to be looking for hair growth patterns, so you'll be looking for widow's peaks, cow's lips, which aren't going to really affect it too much in the front, but most certainly in the back you're going to be looking for nape whorls. Can everyone remember what they are? So when the hair grows in a different direction, that will most definitely affect this haircut, because it's going to make the hair behave differently. Yeah. So you definitely, before you start cutting this, you'd be looking, you can see as you work through your cuts, guys, the importance of checking for those hair growth patterns, because they will, affect how you cut, and you may well sometimes have to adapt the haircut to fit around hair growth patterns. So how do you think you might, if you had someone with a nape whorl in the back and they wanted their haircut like this, how might you have to adapt the haircut to suit that hair growth pattern, do you think?
You have to go around it. You have to go around make your line go around the actual...
Don't forget we're talking about the nape, so not the crown, the nape.
You make it a little bit longer.
So you might have to, you might just have to make it longer if it's really quite a strong nape whorl that's going to affect the baseline. Really, your other growth patterns, so your double crown, your cow's lip, and your widow's peak, are only really going to affect the hair at the front or when it's short. So really, the most common ones you'll come across, and the ones that you'll probably commonly have to adapt your cuts to, are your nape whorls and your cow's lips in front. Okay? Because obviously fringes and your neckline at the back is going to be what you're affecting most. So you can see I'm nearly up to my point where I would have been meeting my top two sections now, so we're just going to do this one section. Okay, so you'll notice I'm still keeping it 0, everything's at 0. So when I'm watching you, just be aware that you're not bringing it out like this, keep it at 0, so no stretching on there at all. When it's flat to that neckline as you can get it. And obviously if it's on a client and you're working on quite a good length, you can almost use the hair, you can use the neck to lean against. Okay. Keep an eye on your posture. Don't forget how you stand affects how you cut. As I'm moving through, it's far easier to see that guideline, isn't it? Okay, so I'm going to just bring the head up slightly now, so it's coming up to a more upright position. And you'll start to see the shape creating. So I'm just going to do one more section on that section at the back just to show you. It's just taking you right up to the ear now. I'll turn the head round in a moment to show you. We're just on that edge where so you can see in the back sections there, in the middle, there's nothing to come off there because my layer is now shorter than the length I'm dealing with. Okay, so you can turn the head round slightly. Okay, so I'm following for my guide. There's my guide. So you'll notice as I come round to the front sections.
Sorry.
I'm going to swing it slightly back. And then bring it back to middle. Okay, so I'm looking for my guideline underneath. There it is, so I'm going to cut.
Right, beautiful. Excuse me. Don't you block my whole view? What my big head?
So just on checking that section, I'm noticing that I'm just slightly longer on the right hand side, so I'm going to go back to that side. And I can see why now. Look, there's my guide and I've gone just slightly too far over it. Look, so I'm going to come back to there. So you can see the importance of checking that as you work through that haircut. You must keep checking. You know, because if you get it wrong from midway through the cut, obviously the rest, everything you do after that point is going to be wrong. So you can see as that head comes up right now, you can see the shape starting to create there, can't we? So I'm going to turn around now and show you how you do this one side. So like with your one lengths, what I always recommend is you do a section, the same section on each side before you do the whole of one section to make sure that you're balanced, okay? You may sometimes or sometime in the future be doing this on a asymmetric thing, so you might have one side longer than the other. You know, then that's fine, you could work through one section and do the other, but while it's balanced, I always recommend that you do both, so that you've got a guideline on both sides and then you know that you're even. Okay, so you can see. So what we're going to do is on those side sections, so I hope everyone can see this. So unlike your one length where you bring it round to your guide, you're actually going to take that section back to your guide. Okay, so you can see your guide underneath there. There it is, and I'm going to cut. What's that going to do to the baseline, do you think? Dragging it back. Yeah, so if you think about how you cut your long graduation haircut, so when you're pulling all that hair up to the top, the hair at the very bottom of the head is longer than the hair up at the crown. That's because it's being stretched. This is what's happening here. So this hair on the front is being stretched further back, so it's going to end up longer. Okay. So we're going to bring that around. So you're just following the line that you put in initially. Obviously, if you wanted it more dramatic, it is at this point that you would then stretch back and make more of an angle on there. But like I say, I'm going to keep with quite a nice subtle cut. And again, I'm going to move round, check your sections. I've got the same again, so slightly longer on the right hand side. You can see exactly why straight away, can't we? So I'm happy they're even now. So what you can do is move from one side and complete the whole side. You'll notice I'm cutting still in the centre parting with a bob shape, whether it's asymmetrical or whatever. If you always cut in the middle, you can change your parting afterwards. If you cut on a side parting, you have to keep that parting in there. And what you'll notice now on this, because of those layers in there, you'll see that there's nothing actually to cut off. All the layers are shorter than my baseline. So on this haircut, what I'm going to be doing is actually just making sure that everything blends into that line now. You can see I've got a tiny little bit at the front there to cut off. You can see it, there's my guide there, so that's going to come off. So I'm still dragging that back to the back. So obviously, because I know there's not going to be a lot, I can pull all that down now in one go. You can see there's nothing to come off there because all the tiny little bit there. You see, because all my previous layers I've cut in are all shorter than the baseline there. So on yours, you'll just work your way up, carrying on like that first section, okay? And I'll just recap that on this side. So you're going to take another section. So again, you're still diagonally, that section is still following that initial diagonal one that you put in down the bottom. Okay, so you're going to pull it back, find your guide. There's my guide. And I'm going to cut to it. Okay, so you would just continue with that all the way up. All the way up, and I think I shouldn't really have anything to cut off here. No. So you'll see on yours, hopefully you will have, and you'll be able to work all the way through that, bringing it back to that baseline to make sure there's nothing more to come off. So when I dry that, what you'll notice is there'll be a nice strong shape. So when I turn it to the side, you can see that shape emerging. Yeah, so you can see it's up at the back, coming forward to the front. And obviously I've got layers, old layers in there, but if it was all one length, you'd have an even stronger shape there.
Very nice.
All right, thank you, yeah. So that's what